They say Mexico is a land of deep roots, ancient places, where the past isn't just remembered, the past is very much lingering quietly in the cracked sidewalks of a forgotten town. Sometimes breathing just beneath the dirt, waiting to be disturbed. Government cover-ups, strange cult activity, old hospitals and abandoned streets. Each person stumbles into something they were never meant to see. But the truth was much darker than the legends ever dared whisper. Welcome to Weird Encounters, a place where the ordinary fades into shadow and the unexplainable comes alive. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and become part of our ever-growing community of the curious. Now prepare yourself, because what you are about to hear is not for the faint of heart. Durango's mountains have always kept their secrets. Long-forgotten mines, ghost towns swallowed by the forest, and whispers of soldiers patrolling places that don't show up on any map. And in the hills near San Dimas, some things never stayed buried. Hello, I'm not someone who usually talks about things like this. I spent my life working ranches and construction sites, and I always figured there was a logical explanation for the weird stuff people claim to see. But what happened outside San Dimas last September was unforgettable, and there's no easy way to explain it. My wife's family owns a ranch about 20 minutes south of San Dimas, just on the edge of the older mining country. A lot of those tunnels out there have been abandoned for decades. Lately, though, people have been talking about soldiers coming back, unmarked trucks, fences going up where there weren't fences before. No signs, no explanations. Some folks said it had to do with old American contracts from the 1970s. Mining experiments, underground mapping, that sort of thing. But nobody really knew. Or maybe they just didn't want to say. I wasn't thinking about any of that when I found the cow. Clean kill. Bloodless, eyes missing, no signs of a struggle. It was like the life had been sucked out of it. That night I stayed out too long fixing the east fence line, closer to where the army had started putting up new barriers. The sun was gone and the forest got real quiet. No bugs, no birds, just this heavy, waiting silence. Then I heard it. Clicking, like bones tapping together. Something fast. Moving around me. I swung the flashlight everywhere but couldn't see more than a few feet. The trees were too thick, and then I caught it. Eyes low to the ground, glowing a dirty orange. It stood up. It wasn't a person. It had the shape of one, maybe once, but it was stretched wrong. Limbs too long, joints bending backward, head tilted too far to the side. The skin looked tight, like dried leather pulled over sticks. And the mouth, it was smiling, wide, flat, like it was amused. I fired my rifle. I know I hit it because I saw it jerk back, but it didn't fall. It just hissed, this awful metallic sound that made the hair on my arms stand up. I ran. I don't even remember thinking about it. It was just instinct. I sprinted toward the swampy runoff from the old mines. A nasty, toxic ditch full of black water and sludge. Nothing lives in there. I didn't stop. I ran straight through it. The water clung to my legs, heavy and oily. I slipped once and almost went under, and I swear I felt hands, or something like hands, brush against me under the surface. But somehow I pulled myself out, half drowned, covered in black mud. I made it to the truck and tore down the dirt road without looking back. The next day, I reported the dead cow to the local police. They didn't even blink. Said wild dogs, told me not to go poking around the fences, gave me some form to sign. The younger officer who processed me quietly said, "It's not just dogs. Stay away from the old shafts. Stay away from the new fences." That was all he would say. Later, an old miner told me what some of the locals believe. Back in the 70s, foreign mining companies dug too deep near San Dimas. They found a system of natural caverns, and something inside those caverns. Something ancient. The companies pulled out fast. The military came in even faster. Not to mine, not to explore, to contain. But the fences don't hold everything in. Sometimes things slip out, especially when the rains come and the ground shifts. I haven't been back to San Dimas since. And if you're smart, you'll stay far away from the old mining roads, especially after dark. Sometimes it's not the gold or the silver they dig for. Sometimes it's something else. And in the forgotten hills of Durango, what was once hidden underground still remembers the way back to the surface. In this next story, the desert night hums with old songs. Some sung by men, others by things far older than memory. In the shadows, by the crumbling villages and forgotten roads, they say ancient forces still move, and sometimes they are not content to stay hidden. My name's Tommy. I'm 41, born and raised around Laredo, Texas. I'm writing you because, well, I don't know where else to say this without people thinking I've lost it. This happened about 6 months ago, late October. I'd been going through a rough patch. My marriage was falling apart, job stress, you name it. Just a really tough time. A buddy of mine suggested we take a weekend trip to Mexico to clear our heads. He'd been reading about this old mining town called Real de Catorce. Said it was spiritual or something. Lots of energy, peyote ceremonies with the Huichol people, that kind of thing. I didn't know much about it, but I figured why not. We crossed at Eagle Pass, drove south for hours. By the time we hit the foothills of the Sierra Madre, the sun was already down. Real de Catorce is way up in the mountains, and to get there you have to drive through this one-lane tunnel that's like a mile long, carved straight into the rock. The Ogario Tunnel. No lights inside except your headlights. It was already giving me a bad feeling, and I'm not usually the nervous type. We finally got to the town. Cobblestone streets, old churches, ruins everywhere. It felt like stepping back in time. There were lots of stray dogs. Streets were mostly empty except for a few old women selling candles and beads. That night, after a few beers at a cantina, my buddy said he heard about some locals doing a real ceremony out past the graveyard. Said it wasn't touristy stuff. It was the real deal. He wanted to go. I told him he was out of his mind, but he wore me down. Stupid. We walked through the graveyard, which was bad enough. Half the graves were cracked open, crumbling. Dogs howled somewhere out in the dark. Past that was just desert scrub and rocky hills. About a mile out, we saw firelight. A circle of maybe 20 people, all in long robes, chanting low and slow in Spanish. Some of the words I caught didn't sit right. Stuff about los que caminan entre las sombras, the ones who walk between shadows. At first I thought it was just some weird local ritual. Maybe peyote had something to do with it. But then I noticed there was something in the circle. At first glance, it looked like a man. Tall, gaunt, hunched. But the longer I stared, the less human it seemed. Its arms were too long, knees bent backward like an animal. The skin was stretched thin over bones, patches of hair sticking out in clumps. The head was wrong too, elongated, the mouth hanging slack like it was broken. The people weren't worshiping it. They were feeding it. They dragged a goat into the circle, slit its throat, and let the blood pool at the creature's feet. The thing bent down, if you can even call it bending, and lapped at it with this long black tongue. I wanted to run, but I couldn't move. It was like the desert itself was holding me in place. My buddy whispered that he thought it was a nagual or maybe a skinwalker. Said he'd heard about them before, Brujo spirits, half man, half beast, cursed by old magic. He said they could smell fear, and if you got marked, they could follow you back across the border, across the whole damn world if they wanted. I don't know if I made a noise or just shifted wrong, but suddenly the creature snapped its head around and looked right at me. The eyes, God help me, the eyes weren't human. Yellow and slit-pupiled like a snake's, and full of hate. Not hunger. Hate. The people in the circle turned too. A woman nearest to us hissed, no joke, and pointed straight at me. I broke out of the trance and bolted. Didn't even check if my buddy was following. Just ran blind through the desert, ripping my hands and legs on thorns, falling and scrambling up again. At one point, I hit a dry creek bed, tripped, and tumbled hard. When I looked back, I swear I saw it. The thing, standing on the ridge above me, silhouetted by the moon, watching, waiting. I made it back to the tunnel somehow, banged on a local's door until some old man finally opened up and let me inside, wouldn't speak to me, just crossed himself and locked the door behind me. My buddy showed up hours later, scratched up and bloody but alive. He wouldn't talk about what happened. Still won't. We left at first light. I've had nightmares ever since. And once, about a week after we got back, I found a dead crow on the hood of my truck. Its eyes had been gouged out. Some things you don't outrun. Some things, once they see you, you belong to them. They say every town in Mexico has its own ghost story. Some are sweet, some are sad. But in the humid, crumbling heart of Veracruz, some are far worse. Some don't stay in the old hospitals and abandoned streets. Some come looking for you. Hi. This happened to me about 7 months ago, back in October, when I was visiting family in Veracruz. I'm originally from there, but moved up to Texas about 20 years ago. Still, I go back sometimes. At least I used to. I was staying with my cousin Jorge out in the Boca del Rio area, not too far from the city, but enough into the quieter, older neighborhoods where the streets turn to cracked cobblestone and the air smells heavy, like salt and decay. There's this old hospital there, Hospital Juarez. It's been shut down since the 80s, I think, after some fire or scandal, depending on who you ask. Everyone there talks about La Planchada, this ghostly nurse who supposedly walks the halls looking for dying patients to fix. The story's been around forever. I thought it was just tourist stuff. Until that night, Jorge had gone out with his friends and left me at the house. I couldn't sleep, so I decided to walk down toward the coast. There's a little broken path that winds along the water, with mangroves growing up into the mud. I don't know why, but that night I thought it would be peaceful. I got near the hospital ruins without even realizing it at first. The clouds were low, choking out the stars, and the air smelled wrong, like iron, heavy and wet. As I passed by, I heard a splash in the water by the mangroves. I thought maybe it was a fish or some kind of bird. But then something moved. At first, it looked like a woman, standing half in the shadows, half in the shallow water. She was wearing what looked like a nurse's uniform. Only, it was all wrong. The white was gray and dripping, like the fabric itself was rotting off her. Her head jerked sideways, the way a broken doll's would if you twisted it wrong. I froze. I wanted to move, to run, but it was like my body didn't belong to me anymore. I could hear her breathing, slow, raspy, like something that shouldn't still be alive. Then she started toward me. No walking, no stumbling. She just glided, over the mud, over the water, right at me. I tore off down the path, but the only way to get back without doubling all the way around was through the swampy area behind the hospital. I didn't even think. I just ran. I hit the water without slowing down. It was warm and thick, and it smelled like sewage, and something dead had been rotting there a long time. I could feel things brushing against my legs, slimy, shifting things, and something big moved in the deeper part ahead of me, but I didn't look. I couldn't. I knew if I stopped for even a second, she, or something worse, was going to get me. I remember the way the water sucked at my legs, like it was trying to hold me there. I went under once, almost choked, but somehow I found the other side and clawed up onto the muddy bank. That's when I heard it. Not breathing this time, laughing. A low, cruel, bubbling laugh that followed me all the way back to Jorge's house. I didn't tell him what happened until the next morning. He looked pale when I did. He told me there have been stories, even recent ones, about something not right around the old hospital grounds. Not just La Planchada either. Things moving in the water. Things they say are drawn to fear. Some of the old-timers claim it's because during the 1970s, there was some kind of cult that operated out of the hospital after it shut down. Sacrifices, missing kids, that kind of thing. The police blamed it on vagrants and gangs back then, but people say the ground itself is cursed now. That La Planchada isn't the only thing walking there. Jorge's neighbor, an old woman who lived there her whole life, told me later that once you see her, she marks you. She said sometimes she shows up again, years later, when you least expect it. I don't know if that's true, but every so often now, even back here in Texas, I swear I hear something breathing outside my bedroom window, and sometimes, when it's real quiet, well, I think I hear that same awful laugh. Some places are best left to ruin, some things best left buried, but sometimes the dead have other plans, and they don't take kindly to being forgotten. And so, another strange encounter fades away. A trick of the mind, or something far more unsettling. That's for you to decide. Thank you so much for watching my stories. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Your support is what keeps this channel going.